We hear about trade wars on the news all the time. It's one of those topics that seems to pop up every few months, with headlines flashing across our screens and experts debating what it all means. Tariffs, sanctions, embargoes. It sounds like a bunch of political jargon, right? Words that seem complicated and distant, like they belong in some economics textbook or a heated debate on Capitol Hill. Something for suits in Washington to worry about. The kind of thing that feels far removed from our daily lives, as if it only affects big corporations or government officials. But here's the thing. These global spats can hit a lot closer to home than you might think. They don't just stay in the halls of power. Their effects can reach right into your living room. And I'm not just talking about paying a little extra for your next smartphone or the latest gadget. Sure, prices might go up, but that's only scratching the surface. I'm talking about the essentials, the things we depend on every single day, often without even thinking about it. Things like electricity to keep the lights on, clean water flowing from your tap, and even the ability to call a loved one or access the internet. When those things go away, life gets real fast. Suddenly, the comforts and routines we take for granted can vanish in an instant. We live in a connected world where everything is linked together in ways we don't always see. What happens in some far-off country can have a ripple effect that reaches your doorstep, affecting the packages you receive, the food you eat, and the services you rely on. Trade wars mess with these connections. They can slow down repairs, delay shipments, and make it harder to get the parts and materials we need. They disrupt the delicate balance of supply and demand that keeps our modern world running smoothly, making it harder for companies to plan and for workers to do their jobs. Remember the toilet paper shortage a while back? Shelves emptied out overnight, and people scrambled to find basic supplies. That was just a taste of what can happen when global supply chains get squeezed. And it's not just about convenience, it's about security and stability. Now imagine that same scenario, but instead of toilet paper, it's the parts needed to keep the power grid up and running, parts that might only be made overseas, or the chemicals that treat your drinking water, which are often imported from other countries and are critical for public health. Suddenly, a trade war doesn't seem so distant, does it? It becomes personal, affecting your bills, your safety, and your peace of mind. It's easy to think this is all some far-fetched doomsday scenario, something that only happens in movies or to other people. But the truth is, the risks are real, and they're here right now. These challenges are already affecting communities across the country, reminding us just how fragile our modern comforts can be. Let's talk about electricity. It's something most of us rarely think about, yet it's the invisible force powering nearly every aspect of our daily lives. We take it for granted, right? From the moment we wake up, electricity is there, lighting our rooms, charging our phones, brewing our coffee. Flip a switch, the lights come on. It feels almost magical, but it's really the result of a vast, interconnected system working behind the scenes. But behind that simple act is a complex system of power plants, transmission lines, and transformers, all working together to keep the lights on. And guess what? A lot of the components that make up this system come from overseas. Our grid depends on a global supply chain. We're talking about things like high-voltage transformers, specialized sensors, and other critical hardware that simply isn't made in the US anymore. Even the software that controls the grid often relies on international expertise and updates from developers around the world. Trade wars can disrupt the flow of these vital parts. Delays at ports or new tariffs can mean critical equipment just doesn't arrive when it's needed. Imagine a critical transformer blows in your town. Suddenly the wait for a replacement stretches from days to weeks, or even months. Without a replacement, you're looking at weeks, maybe even months without power. That means no lights, no heat, no internet. Life as we know it grinds to a halt. And it's not just about the physical equipment. The digital side of the grid is just as vulnerable. Cyberattacks are a growing threat to our power grid. Hackers can exploit weaknesses in software or hardware, especially if updates are delayed by trade issues. Think about it. Why send troops when you can shut down a country with a few keystrokes? The risks are real and growing. Trade wars can escalate tensions between nations, making these kinds of attacks more likely. When trust breaks down, so does cooperation on security. Think about that the next time you flick on a light switch. That simple act depends on a fragile, global web. The stability of our power grid is directly tied to the stability of global trade. Every link in the chain matters. And when that trade is disrupted, the consequences can be dark, both literally and figuratively. Our modern lives depend on keeping those connections strong. Power grids are just one piece of the puzzle. Our energy systems are complex and vulnerable. Think about the fuel that powers our homes and businesses. Much of it comes from overseas. Trade wars can disrupt these supplies, leading to shortages and price spikes. Remember the gas lines back in the 70s? That was a taste of what happens when energy security is threatened. And it's not just about keeping the lights on and the cars running. Our hospitals, our schools, our entire economy, they all depend on a reliable supply of energy. When that supply is threatened, the consequences can be devastating. We're talking about food spoilage, medical equipment failures, and widespread economic disruption. The bottom line is this: energy security is national security, and trade wars have the potential to cripple our energy infrastructure, leaving us vulnerable to both economic hardship and foreign influence. Okay, so we've covered keeping the lights on, but what about something even more basic: water? You might be surprised to learn that water security is also tied to global trade. Think about the chemicals used to treat our drinking water, the pipes that carry it to our homes, the pumps that keep it flowing. Many of these essential components come from other countries. Trade wars can disrupt these supply chains, putting our water infrastructure at risk. And it's not just about infrastructure. Water itself is becoming a scarce resource in many parts of the world. Climate change is making droughts more frequent and severe. This is leading to competition for water resources, which can easily spill over into trade disputes and even conflict. Remember the saying, whiskey is for drinking, water is for fighting over? It might sound like an old cowboy cliche, but there's a lot of truth to it. Water is essential for life, and as it becomes more scarce, the stakes get higher. Alright, so we've talked about power and water. Now let's talk about something else we rely on every day: communication. Our phones, our internet, our entire digital world, it all depends on a complex network of satellites, undersea cables, and data centers. And guess what? This network is also vulnerable to trade wars. Many of the components that make up our communication infrastructure come from overseas. Trade restrictions can disrupt the flow of these components, leading to outages and disruptions. But it's not just about the hardware. Cyberattacks pose a huge threat to our communication networks. Imagine a coordinated attack that takes down the internet or disrupts cellular service. Chaos, panic, the inability to communicate with loved ones or access emergency services. Trade wars can create the conditions for these kinds of attacks by increasing tensions between nations and undermining trust. In a world increasingly reliant on digital communication, a breakdown in this infrastructure could be catastrophic. Look, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom here, but it's important to understand that the risks we're talking about are not some distant threat. They're real, and they're happening right now. We've seen major cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure in recent years. Remember the Colonial Pipeline hack? That one attack disrupted fuel supplies for millions of Americans. And it's not just the US that's vulnerable. Countries around the world are facing similar threats. Then there are the supply chain disruptions. The pandemic showed us just how fragile our global supply chains can be. A single factory shutdown in one part of the world can send shockwaves through the entire system. And when those shockwaves hit essential goods like medicine, food, or energy, the consequences can be dire. The point is, the world is a lot more interconnected than we often realize, and trade wars, with all their unintended consequences, have the potential to disrupt this interconnectedness in ways that directly impact our daily lives. So, what can we do about it? When we see stories about power outages, natural disasters, or other emergencies on the news, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or helpless. But the truth is, there are steps we can all take to make our homes safer and more secure, no matter where we live. Well, the first step is to be aware of the risks. Every region has its own unique challenges. Maybe it's hurricanes, wildfires, blizzards, or even just aging infrastructure. Understanding what's most likely to affect your area is key. We can't prepare for something if we don't even know it's a possibility. Take a few minutes to make a list of potential threats to your home and family, and talk about them together. But awareness is just the beginning. It's what you do with that knowledge that really counts. We also need to take action to make our homes and communities more resilient. This could mean joining a local preparedness group, or simply talking with your neighbors about how you can help each other in an emergency. Now, I'm not saying we all need to go full-on doomsday prepper and build bunkers in our backyards. Most of us don't have the time, money, or desire for that level of preparation. But there are some simple, practical things we can do to be better prepared for potential disruptions. Even small steps can make a big difference when the unexpected happens. First off, think about your home's energy needs. How would you keep the lights on if the power went out for a few days, or even longer? Having a backup power source like a generator can be a lifesaver during a power outage. It's not just about comfort, it's about keeping your family safe and your home running. And I'm not talking about some wimpy little thing that can barely power a light bulb. Look for a generator that's powerful enough to handle your essentials. I'm talking about a generator that can keep your essential appliances running, your refrigerator, your furnace, your well pump. That way, you won't lose food, heat, or water if the grid goes down. Next up, water. We all need it to survive. In an emergency, clean water can quickly become scarce. Having a few weeks' worth of bottled water stored is a good start. Make sure you have enough for everyone in your household, including pets. But you can also consider a water filtration system so you can safely drink water from alternative sources, like a nearby stream or pond. Portable filters are affordable and easy to use, and they can be a real lifesaver if your main supply runs out. Food is another big one. In a crisis, grocery store shelves can empty fast. Keep a supply of non-perishable food on hand, canned goods, rice, beans, that sort of thing. Aim for at least a couple of weeks' worth, and rotate your stock so nothing goes to waste. And if you have the space, consider starting a garden. Growing your own food isn't just practical, it's rewarding too. Even a small garden can provide a surprising amount of fresh produce. Plus, it's a great way to get the whole family involved in building resilience, one step at a time. Prepping isn't just about stockpiling supplies, it's also about building community. Get to know your neighbors, share information and resources. When the going gets tough, it's your community that will be there to support you. Think about forming a neighborhood watch program. Organize a first aid and CPR training session. These small steps can make a big difference in times of crisis. Remember, a strong community is a resilient community. And don't forget about the importance of skills. Learn basic home repairs. Know how to change a tire. These skills might seem mundane, but they can be invaluable when the grid goes down. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all this talk of trade wars and global instability. But we can't let fear paralyze us. The best antidote to fear is action. Start by taking small steps to make your home and family more resilient. Build up your emergency supplies, learn some new skills, connect with your neighbors. These small acts of preparedness can give you a sense of control in an increasingly uncertain world. Remember, we're all in this together. And by working together, by preparing ourselves and our communities, we can weather whatever storms may come our way. Stay informed, stay prepared, and stay strong.